everyone, and welcome to Jack and Cat Adventures. Today we're going to be making chicken and dumplings, and the dumplings are made with the Grand's biscuits, but I didn't have any stock at home to start this, so I'm going to start it all from scratch, and we're going to use the stock that we make with all these delicious ingredients. So this, I will write down ingredients, and I'll write down measurements of what I'm using. You can add or subtract or whatever you want to do. It's going to be more like a thick stew than more of a soup, so kind of keep that in mind with your flavors. So I just cut up 4 cloves of garlic, chopped them. I cut up 1 big onion. I cut up 2 carrots, and I cut up 2 celery stalks, and I'm putting 2 bay leaves in. Now, I'm only putting in a little bit of carrot right now because this carrot is what I want to flavor my broth with. It's going to fall apart. You're not really even going to see it in there by the time I'm done making my broth. I am going to add frozen peas and carrots and corn later after this cooks, because if we cook those now, they'll be all cooked to nothing too. So in a pot, just add all of your ingredients. Now remember, the more stuff you put into your broth, the more flavor you're going to have. So, you know, if you don't like something, add more of what you do like so that you get that flavoring in there. So now I have boneless, skinless chicken thighs. You can use any chicken you want. I find if you use the boneless, skinless chicken breast, it really dries out in this, unless you make it from how they have them in the recipes on Pinterest. They just put everything together and they cook it with soup and everything, and that way you could do it that way and it wouldn't be so dry. But these will make it really delicious flavor because you get the dark meat in it. And I did take some of the fat, big pieces of fat off, but leave some because that will give your broth flavor. So I'm just going to add those into the bottom of my pan. So I have 6 in here, and I'm going to be feeding 3 people with this. You use your judgment on how much your family eats. I would say 1 to 2. If they're a good eater, I would say 2 thighs per person if they're good eaters. Okay, so now we're going to add, I'm going to see what 1 teaspoon looks like of garlic powder. Let's just see how that looks. I think I'm going to add 2. That's good, yeah. And remember, I added garlic to that too, but you really want some good flavor with this, especially with those gummy biscuits. You need flavor to bite into those biscuits with. I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. You don't have to do this, it just adds another depth of flavor. Okay. I'm going to add just a little bit of salt and pepper. Go easy on the salt. You could always salt later. And now I'm going to add 1 tablespoon, maybe 2. I really like this stuff. I'll add 2 heaping teaspoons, or tablespoons, I'm sorry, 2 heaping tablespoons of Better Than Bouillon chicken. I think this adds great flavor to any soup you're doing. It's better than adding the dry bouillon cubes or the granules. This is really roasted chicken. Now, the recipe calls for 4 cups of broth. I think I'm going to add 6 and see where we're at, only because I'm going to be boiling this chicken for a while so it gets cooked. And as you boil, you know, the water evaporates out of it. So I want to make sure we have enough water for those biscuits to cook, because if you don't have enough, they're not going to cook. So let me add, this is 4 cups. Yeah, I think what I would say is, if you're going to do it from scratch, make sure your water is over your chicken, and mine's not. So I'm just going to kind of see where we're at. If you have more broth left over, before you start adding all the other things we're going to add to it, you could strain it and put some of that away in freezer containers and freeze it if you think you have too much in here when we're done cooking. So nothing will go to waste. I think I'm going to do 2 more cups, so that's 10 cups only, because it is not covering all of my chicken, and that worries me. You definitely want your chicken cooked. Okay, I did, yeah, let's say about 10. Okay, Jackie, you want to come in and take a look at that? Let's see where my water's at. Okay, so I'm just going to give this a really good stir because of the better than broth. Now, watch this as it cooks. I mean, if you see your water really going down, add more. Don't worry about adding more water. Don't worry about adding more seasonings. You want to do it before we start tinkering with the broth for the dumpling part. Because then we're going to start adding, you know, some creams and things like that in here. I think I'm going to let this go for about an hour, hour and a half. I really want the flavors to melt together. If my chicken's done, I'll shut it off, and I will just let this sit for a while so all the flavors melt together. I pulled my chicken out of my broth, and I'm just going to shred it with 2 forks. It took about an hour to be able to shred it really good, and I wanted it to cook a while because I really wanted the flavors in the broth to come through. I ended up putting in altogether, I think, 10 cups of water, and I'm down to 4 to 5 cups, exactly what we needed for this. So, you know, make sure you plan a little bit because it does boil out. I even left the lid on tilted just a little bit, and I'm only left with about 4 or 5 cups. So, you know, figure out what you need for your family. No, it's not going to hurt if you have too much liquid in there. It's not going to hurt a bit. It's just going to make it go farther. I just really want to get this chicken shredded so that everyone gets like a bite of chicken in each bite. So, alright, so this is the broth that I'm left with. I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of flour to this. And this is just to kind of thicken it up a little bit. Because you do want the thickness so that they cover the dumplings. I'm just going to whisk this and get this a little thickening in here. Alright, so now to this, I'm going to add 1 can of cream of chicken soup. You could use any kind of cream of soup you want. You don't even need to put it in. I'm just adding it for an extra layer of thickness and flavor. So we're going to add that, get it all in there. My broth came out fantastic, and it was all because of those flavors. This will be really, really good. So next you're going to add 1 can of evaporated milk. Not sweetened condensed, evaporated. Add that. Okay, I'm going to stir that for just a second. Okay. So you get it all mixed in there. Okay, now, so now I'm going to add 1 teaspoon of lemon juice. You don't have to do this, but it adds a brightness to the stew. It's more like an underlying flavor that just you can't figure out what it is, but it tastes really good. So we're going to stir that. Now, we're going to add back our chicken. Be careful, don't get burnt putting it in. Okay. Wash my hand real quick. And now I'm going to put in my vegetables. I'm just using a mixed vegetable pack. I had thawed it overnight. It's, you know, thawed out. And I'm just going to throw this in. Alright, so now we're going to bring that up to a simmer. And once it starts simmering, we will add the biscuits, and I'll show you how to do that when we get to that point. Alright, so now I brought my soup mixture, my chicken mixture, up to a simmer. Once it starts to simmer, you're going to take Grand's biscuits with 8 biscuits in them. You're going to cut them into quarters, and you're going to put them gently. Now, we don't want this to boil, we just want it to simmer, so I'm going to bring mine down a lot because my stove gets pretty hot. Alright, so I'm just going to put these in, and these are going to cook in the simmering broth uncovered for 10 minutes, and then you're going to cover it for 15 to 20 minutes or until the biscuits are no longer doughy in the middle. So now this is going to go for 10 minutes uncovered. Alright, so this is the biscuits at the first 10-minute mark. Now I'm going to put the lid on and set the timer for 15 minutes, and we're going to check them at 15 and see if they're doughy. If they're not doughy, we're done. If they're doughy, you might have to go another 5 or 10. Alright, so here's the finished chicken and dumplings, and I have to say the dumplings took 25 minutes covered, so make sure you taste them before you pull them because they might not be done. Please try this recipe and let me know what you think of it. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And remember, you do you.